Hey there, Ron Sullivan here, your online hitting consultant. I thought we would take some time with this episode, Failure to Launch. I think it's great to see what the pros do in relationship to what kids do. And let me point out really quickly that I believe that it's more important as a instructor, as a teacher, and as a parent of a youth player to understand what kids do at the plate than it is to understand what pros do. Sure, having that basis for understanding what the high level swing is fantastic. But if you don't understand what kids do and you just are on line diagramming what the pros do, I think that you're going to be very frustrated in your quest for the holy grail of making your kid look like Albert Pujols. I say that with experience. I do about 1,000 hours of private lessons a year from my facility here in Haslett, Texas. And what is a growing trend is there are a lot of apps. Here's Jose Bautista, for instance. We're going to make you look like Jose Bautista. If you don't understand what the kid on the left is trying to do, what his concept is of what it means to swing the bat, you're going to be very frustrated because this is his most natural way to move. So understand why kids do what they do, right? And then I think you can create a roadmap for progress. But if your goal is always how are we going to get you to look like Jose Bautista, I think there's a lot of frustration down that road. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it as particularly as an instructor and you guys that are coaches. You want to be careful with trying to take everybody and make them look like something particular. Find out what they do naturally and what they do naturally well. And I think that you're going to make a lot more progress than trying to make them look like Albert Pujols. Okay, so with that said, here's the launch position. And I'm showing this because this is, I think, number one in youth mechanical errors, I guess, is that they typically don't hit this position. I say typically, maybe I would say in all of my evaluations, 99% don't hit this position. And it doesn't matter if they're a big strider, little strider, no strider. Whenever the weight gets shifted, when the heel plants in the ground, that's when the swing begins to drive, no matter what type of weight shift you do. This is a consistent position for players at the highest level. Now, I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about how these players get to this position, but I do want to just through this, I think, pretty obvious that these guys are trying to hit basically the same position. The goal's the same anyways. Front shoulder on the pitch, hands still back. The back elbow, which people try not to make that big of a deal these days. It's so critical, I think, in the process of unloading the swing that oftentimes we'll discount it because kids have positions like what you see there on the left, and we say, well, we definitely don't want to get his back elbow up because he's going to flop that guy down. No, you teach him the proper sequence of how to use that back elbow because ultimately, if we can get our hands working ever so slightly down into the slot in front of the back elbow, then we're going to give our players a chance to have a smooth swing with very little resistance. Okay, but if our goal is to be afraid of the back elbow and say, "Oh, that's just a disaster waiting to happen," then you're going to continue to battle sequence issues. All right, this is the one exception I have, at least in this group of guys, where the elbow slot's a little bit earlier probably than most. But you can see even at this position at weight shift, the elbow is about right here. It's not wedged into a side. These guys are giving themselves room to stay back, keep their hands back. Most importantly, I can't stress it enough, when they begin to unload the swing, if this elbow is underneath the hands at all, and some guys, look, don't get me wrong, you'll see every now and then Albert Pujols will drive that back elbow down and then his hands will go. But the majority of these guys, I think, are trying to maintain really good sequence here where the hands, or we could say the knob, stays in front of that back elbow as we get into the slot. Okay, so the timing of that is all very important. Do kids have a hard time learning it? Yes, but I don't think that's a reason not to teach it. But it seems to me, right, that it's really critical that you give your players room or a running start with their hands with a little bit of mass with it instead of just their hands back and their elbow wedged into their side. I still don't understand why people would teach that. But anyways, I wanted to show what do youth players look like at launch. Now here's my evaluation, the last 6 evaluations. No, I didn't pick these out and say, oh, this will prove my point. These are the last 6 evaluations. Now each one of these kids has different ability levels, some more skilled than others, but I think you can see a consistent pattern, right, of front shoulder being up at heel plant. Hands have already began to drop, right, and some to differing degrees. You'll see the elbow beginning to pull underneath as the body starts to create some resistance, right, and the resistance is going to be, and I should have said, we can't create resistance for the barrel, right? The barrel and the hands have to have a smooth path, a smooth place to take off from, or a proper place to take off from. And I think that it's pretty obvious that all these young men are doing something that's creating resistance. And I'd love to tell you that, well, it's just this kid. This is normally what I see, right? Where players are getting the barrel into a position to swing the bat around, okay? And so for all the people out there that talk bad about the linear approach, now I don't teach down and through by any stretch of the imagination, but this is why instructors try to get players to get to the ball as fast as possible. I don't care what they said online about rotating, right? And the basis of my instruction is rotational, I guess, but I'm not afraid to say that I don't use that word at all around kids, because this is the reason. Every single player that comes in the door is trying to set up their body to spin around. They're trying to set up their hands. They're trying to set up the barrel to go around. Where else is the barrel going to go from here? When you pin the barrel behind you, it has to go around. All right? So that's exactly what players are trying to do naturally. Okay? So this all starts, though, with this failure to launch. Players not understanding how to keep their body in the right position all the way into weight shift. And so what ends up happening for coaches and parents, and I believe even instructors, is that we start going down these paths of well, this player has elbow drag. You see it here, back elbow's coming underneath, right? And the barrel's gone completely. This is the disappearing bat trick, right? How is he not going to have elbow drag with this? The barrel's laying behind them. He's got to pull down this bat all the way around his body. All right, and so what we end up doing is this player also rolls over too early out front, right? Well, all these players probably have some degree of an early rollover through the zone because of exactly what we see here. So what do? Do we give them extension drills where our hands get through longer? No, that would be insane. Do we do drills to get their hands quicker? How are they going to get quicker with their hands with the barrel behind them? These players all need to learn how to maintain a good athletic position when they get to launch. And that's what I try to do as an instructor for each one of these kiddos, right? But I think that you can see a consistent pattern. Check to see, using video, where your player is when his heel, or he or she, when their heel plants. I have a feeling that you're going to see some things very similar to this. Now, if your player is getting into a position where the barrel is not disappearing behind them, then you're off to a good start. Does that mean that their swing is going to be perfect? Not necessarily. But as long as you're at least achieving this first step right, I believe that you give the sequence of the swing a better chance to unload. All these players are working to clean up this first phase of the swing, their pre-swing, whatever they're doing early on to get them out of position. We're trying to clean that up by learning to get to a better launch position. So check that. Look at your players. This could be the #1 problem, and all the things that you're pulling your hair out with slow bat speed and all those things, long swing. It could be that they just don't understand what it means to get to a good weight shift. We'll have a video out pretty soon on talking about how to get to a better launch position. Not just a drill, but talking to you about how to teach a kid how to get to the launch position, okay? So I appreciate you joining me in Failure to Launch. Look, get your players to a better athletic position when the heel plants, and you're probably going to see a lot of the problems that you currently see are not going to be as big an issue. All right, thanks, guys.